I am not the hardest worker in the room, especially at a school like Stanford. There are people here who grind 24/7, who are starting startups on the side and manage to go to the gym 5 days a week and even hit legs. It is literally impossible for me to do all of those things. However, I still manage to be productive enough to balance all of the things that I really want to. Schoolwork, my YouTube channel, extracurriculars, sleep, a social life. Here's how I do it. In high school, it always felt like I was never able to muster up the willpower or the discipline to do all of the things that I wanted to do. And I think for a while, I was kind of just hard on myself, and I just told myself that I needed to work harder or be more disciplined. But I think that advice misses a lot of nuance and a lot of the reality that we are just not productivity machines. If you do too little, it feels like your days lack substance and meaning. And if you do too much, you run the risk of burning out and doing nothing right because you've spread yourself too thin. But I think one of the best feelings in the world is towing that line perfectly, where you feel like you are doing the maximum amount of stuff per day that you can without getting burnt out. So here are some productivity tips that have helped me be way more productive without having to be the absolute hardest worker in the room. There's this common sentiment at Stanford and just in life that you need to take advantage of all of the opportunities that are given to you. But frankly, that's just impossible. If you try to take advantage of them all, you're going to end up with way too much on your plate and you're going to crash and burn. Be less ambitious. A lot of the times in high school, I would set these lofty goals and ambitions about being the hardest worker in the room or waking up at unrealistically early hours. And I would never be able to live up to them. So I would end up just giving up altogether. I know there's this really common saying that you should shoot for the moon and even if you miss, you'll land amongst the stars. But I actually don't think that's true. I think a lot of the times if we shoot for the moon and we realize that we are inevitably going to fail, we just give up altogether. I kind of think to myself, oh, if I can't wake up today at 5 in the morning like I'd originally planned, I may as well just sleep in till 10 in the morning like I normally do. You need small wins to actually build up momentum and to just feel like you're improving. Otherwise, it just constantly feels like you're not living up to this impossible standard that you've set for yourself, and that's pretty uninspiring. If you're watching this video, you're probably not the most productive person in the world, and that's fine because I am not either. Just take that into account when you think about how much you can handle. Cut yourself some slack and set the bar slightly lower than you think you can hit. And then as you're able to comfortably handle all of the tasks that you've put on your plate, you can slowly start to add in more stuff because you'll become more productive over time, and the foundations of how productive you are slowly being built if you build up small wins. But you need to start slowly. Realizing you can't do everything can actually be a really relieving feeling. And it also helps you focus more on the things that you can do. In my experience, the big difference between people who are really productive and the people who aren't are in the types of routines that they manage to build. The key to productivity is not having the discipline and willpower to do every single little thing you need to do in a day. It's in having the discipline to construct really good habits. When you're first starting to go to the gym, it can be really hard to force yourself to go to the gym. Every single time you go to the gym, it feels like it requires an immense amount of willpower to get yourself out of the house and go to the gym. But eventually it just becomes automatic, like brushing your teeth. I've managed to exercise pretty consistently this year, and I literally never look forward to going to the gym. But whenever a Tuesday rolls around, I just think to myself, oh, it's Tuesday, time to go to the gym. And it doesn't take that much willpower anymore because it's just something I've trained myself to do. Structure is so important for productivity. And if you want a good example of this, just look at the weekends. During the weekends, I have all day to do a small amount of homework, and I still manage to get less work done than on days where I am packed to the brim with classes and clubs and extracurriculars. In theory, during the weekend, I have all of this free time, so I should be able to sit down and do a lot of work. But it never works out that way. On the weekends, I have to constantly make decisions about what I should be doing, where I should be doing it, and whether or not I can actually just skip my homework. Without a schedule, you will spend all of your time just convincing yourself to study. Versus on a Monday when it's oh, it's Monday after lunch, let me go to the library and study for a couple hours. It's just routine. Isn't this the same reason that billionaires wear the same exact outfit every day? The first 30 minutes of my morning, every single day, are pretty much the exact same. And then my routine kind of dumps me into a position where it's really easy for me to start working. During college, obviously just schedule your life around your classes and make sure you actually go to your classes. Having immovable structures in your day is so important. Pick a place to study and study there consistently, whether that's your room or the library or coffee shops. Also, keep a stable sleep schedule. Sleep is the glue that holds life together. And so make sure you are at least getting 7 hours of sleep a night. 90% of the time, I do not work past 9:30 p.m. The latest I've worked this year is 10:30 or 11 on really rare occasions. This tip is going to be controversial, and I know that some people will instantly say that it is literally impossible to not work until 4 a.m. every single day because of all the extracurriculars and startups and clubs that you're in, on top of like your very rigorous academic schedule. First off, I have like watched a lot of the ways that people study. Honestly, I think a lot of people just study really inefficiently, like they're either talking with friends or they get distracted really easily. If you actually think that you're working at maximum efficiency and you can't call it a day after 14 hours of being awake and working, then refer back to my first point. But I just know that for me, come nighttime, I am way less productive. Most of the times in high school or whatever that I've tried to do homework at night, I end up just getting distracted anyways, or I spend half of my focus or energy just thinking about the things that I would rather be doing. The only times that studying at night have really worked for me are when I'm in really bad positions, when I'm cramming to study for a test the night before, or when I'm finishing an essay the night before it is due. I also honestly think that I'm more productive during the day if I know that there's a certain time in the day that I will just stop working. Knowing that I will stop working at 9:30 pushes me to work way harder during the day, because I know come 9:30 I'm just going to stop working. There used to always be this option in my head of, oh, I'll just do it later tonight, or I will just do it later, but that just isn't a thing anymore. I know for a fact that if I don't do it now, it is not going to happen later tonight. Also, literally at like any other point in your life, like when you're working a job, you expect them to have like a certain end time. Like imagine a job that just gave you really ambiguous hours that you were just on the clock all of the time and expected to work whenever you could. I don't know why we don't at least try to implement a similar thing for just college life and college studying. I think that really helps balancing out everything that you want to do. Like honestly, I save most of my socializing outside of like grabbing meals with people for nighttime. So then come nighttime, I'd never have like the guilt of like, oh, I want to hang out with these people, but I have a lot of homework to do anymore. Like I know that I've carved out specific time at night for me to hang out with other people. And so I never feel that guilt anymore. And it feels like I'm just way more present with the people that I'm hanging out with. And then when I'm doing homework, I'm just way more focused on my homework. And obviously this rule is not like set in stone. Sometimes there are situations where I will work past 9:30 because I literally have to meet a certain deadline or whatever. But for the most part, like 90% of the time, come 9:30 at night, I'm done working. This is going to be another controversial tip. There's a finite amount of time that you have, and assuming that you want to sleep well, have a social life, do well in school, and like have other extracurriculars and clubs that you like to do, then it is literally impossible to give 100% of your effort into all of those things at every single moment. You're also not always going to be in a state of mind where you're capable of giving 100% effort every single day. The most important thing in progressing is not making sure you do every single thing right every single time. The most important thing is consistency. Going to the gym 3 times a week for 40 minutes is way more sustainable and will help you progress way more than going to the gym once for 2 hours and then just never going again, because that's unsustainable. And like honestly, the good thing is that most of the time, giving 80% will give you pretty good results. For my classes in college, I admittedly just don't read the textbook, and a lot of the essays that I work on, I honestly give 80% to them. And like the good news is I still like get A's or A minuses in my classes. I'm not like the best student ever, but that's okay. Or if I'm at the gym and I'm running low on time, I'll just skip my last exercise, which is okay because doing all of the exercises except one is way better than doing none of them. You can continue to just pour more and more effort into things, but you have to think about diminishing returns at some point. You need to work smarter, not harder. All that being said, it's not like I'm getting A+ in all of my classes, making the best YouTube videos ever, or like I'm really jacked. You won't be like the absolute best at these things, but also like I think if you're just starting out, like worrying about being the absolute best right now is going to hurt you a lot more than it's going to help you. If I wanted to obsess over being the best about these things and squeeze out every single last ounce of effort I have, I just know that I'd be way less consistent across the board. So you need to be okay with not being perfect all the time. Over time, showing up consistently, even if it's 80%, will help you way more than sporadically giving it your all. Slow and steady wins the race. Tip number 5, make sure you actually care about what you're doing. All of these tips will supposedly help make you more efficient and productive, but it has always been my experience that why I am doing the work is more important than how I do the work or what I am doing. When it comes to productivity, nothing can actually make up for actually caring about the work that you're doing. If you hate what you're doing, you're just not going to be productive. So if you're in college, really remind yourself why you're there, or why you're doing the things you're doing, or what you really want to get out of this experience. Also, it has always helped me to have school not be the most important thing in my life. Because a lot of the time, school is like really important to me for like very far off long-term goals. But it is not always immediately engaging and fun. But when I have side projects and hobbies that I'm working on right now that I do find really engaging and inspiring, that always makes getting through the monotony of schoolwork way easier. And honestly, if you don't have anything that you enjoy doing, or you really don't know why you're doing the things that you're doing, productivity should be like the last of your worries. So those are my basic tips on how to be a more productive person. Those have really helped me, and I hope you find those helpful too. Thank you guys for watching my YouTube video, and I hope I see you guys next time.